Hi guys, welcome to English Learning Stop. In today's lesson, we are going to learn about relative pronouns. Now pronouns, as you know, takes the place of a noun. Like, for example, I could say Mr. Sam is having lunch. Now I replace Mr. Sam with he. He is having lunch. So pronouns usually take the place of a noun. Okay, I write the example and mention the example here. Mr. Sam is having lunch. And I simply replace this term with my pronoun, that is he. Okay, so to make things simple, like not to repeat words, we use pronouns in a sentence. Like if I had added over here Mr. Sam is having lunch, he's going to the Mr. Sam is going to the washroom, Mr. Sam is planning to do work. So instead of repeatedly naming him or saying his name in my whole sentence, I'm going to replace Mr. Sam with the term or with my pronoun, that is he. Now let's look at relative pronouns. Since you are clear with the pronouns, I've written a few examples over here. I'll just give the explanation in short over here, then we are going to move in detail. The first one, the man, just look at these sentences. The man who was standing fell. Now I have my relative pronoun, that is who, in the sentence. Now why have I written who over here? I've written who over here because my antecedent is a noun, is a person. Now please don't get confused. What do you mean by antecedent? I'm going to give you the detail about it just after these examples. Just listen to what I'm trying to say, or I'm trying to explain over here in all these 5 sentences. So who over here is my relative pronoun. Who was standing fell down. There is a full stop placed over here. The next one, the cupboard which looks small is spacious. Okay, the antecedent over here is not a person, it's a thing, so I've used which over here. The car that hit the bike had a broken mirror. Now there are basically 2 clauses, non-relative clauses and relative clauses. We are going to see them in detail in a bit while. But since it's a relative clause, that means my sentence wouldn't have been completed if I hadn't used a subordinate clause over here. Like for example, I could have said the car had a broken mirror, but I'm adding some information over here that hit the bike. So you use that over there when you have the pronoun that is restrictive relative clause. Okay, so that is used. The next one, the boy whose father is there is a doctor. Again, whose is a relative pronoun, and that is a possessive form of who. We know that. So whose is used over there where we adding some extra information. The boy whose father is there is a doctor. The next one, the girl whom I was talking about is a lawyer. My sentence wouldn't have been completed if I'd said the girl whom I was talking about. Which girl I'm talking about? I'm talking about the girl who is a lawyer. So I've used whom over here. We'll go in detail with this one too. The next one, what she just said is totally false. When there is no antecedent, there is nothing over here, we use what? Okay, let's move on. I hope you have understood what are relative pronouns. Relative pronouns are simply these: who, which, that, whose, whom, and what. Now people get confused when to use these, how to use these, and so it's pretty confusing. So let's go in a bit detail of it. Okay, first we need to know that relative pronouns always will refer to a noun, a pronoun, a main clause, and a subordinate clause. Like for example, I say she knows the chef who cooks great. Up till now you must have understood what is a relative pronoun over here. A relative pronoun is who over here. who, and the antecedent is a noun. Our chef is a noun, this is a person, so we have used who over here. So they refer to a noun. She knows the chef who cooks great. Who cooks great? The chef. So this is a noun. The next one is a pronoun. That means if I could have written, she knows something, that she's in telling, or she's in discussing, telling. I mentioned telling over here. That is a relative pronoun over here. What is it mentioning? What is it referring to? It's referring to a pronoun. Something is a pronoun over here. Okay, this relative pronoun is referring to a pronoun. This is a pronoun, right? It will refer to a main clause. If you haven't yet seen my videos of main clause or subordinate clause, I've mentioned them earlier in my videos. Just go over there and find out what are subordinate clauses, what are main clauses. Okay, the example of main clause, like for example, I say I got a car of my dreams which I hadn't thought of. Which again over here is your relative pronoun, and the main clause is I got the car of my dreams. This could have been just giving you the meaning of a main clause. I hadn't thought of. This is something unnecessary. This doesn't need to be added over here. I just mentioned it over here. So this is our main clause. I got the car of my dreams. This could have stood alone. That means the meaning is complete over here. So this is our main clause. So relative pronoun also refers to a main clause. Just before your relative pronoun, you can have a main clause. Moving on to the next one, that is a subordinate clause, where the information is very necessary. Without that particular information, your sentence is incomplete. Let's see an example. Okay, which over here again is your relative pronoun, right? And we could go hiking is your subordinate clause. It means she told us a great surprise. What surprise did she mention? That we could go hiking. So that this is your subordinate clause, and a relative pronoun lastly refers to a subordinate clause too. I hope this is clear. Let's now clear where do we use who, which, whom, and who's in that. Let's move on. Okay guys, the use of who. We use who when antecedent is a person. I'm continuously saying antecedent whenever I'm trying to explain you the terms who with who and whom and whose. Now what is an antecedent? I will mention the example over here. Even though the party was tiring, it was fun. Now see over here, it is a pronoun. What is it referring to? It is referring to the party. Okay, so now see, party is antecedent. Ante means before. Ante means before. So see, party is the noun to which it refers. It, that means, is a pronoun that refers. What was fun? The party was fun. Even though it was tiring, but it was fun. So this pronoun is referring to the party. This is antecedent. If your pronoun is plural, that means the antecedent automatically will be plural, and if it is singular, it will remain singular. Okay, like for example, I could have said, even though the parties were tiring, they were fun. So if my pronoun was they, that means a plural pronoun, automatically my antecedent would have changed to a plural form, that is parties. So I hope the definition of antecedent is clear. Now see, we use who when antecedent is a pronoun. Now who over here is your relative pronoun, as you know, and your antecedent is son. That means he's a person. Okay, so whenever you have a person and there you're going to use who. The next example, her neighbors who are foreign are always hanging out. Again, we have a relative pronoun, that is who, and then we have a person over here, that is neighbor. So you are going to use who. Next time when you are going to use who, you are going to check whether your antecedent is a person or not. Okay, if it isn't a person, if it is an object, then you're not going to use who. I repeat the term, if your antecedent is not a person, you're not going to use who. Moving on to the next relative pronoun, that is which. The car which was standing outside is nowhere to be seen. Now when I mentioned the term, the relative pronoun who, I mentioned that the antecedent should be a person, but in this case when you are using which, the antecedent is always an object. Okay, so see, the car which was standing, this is your relative pronoun, which was standing outside is nowhere to be seen. Car is your object over here. In this sentence, in this case, again which is your relative pronoun and this is your object. So I hope this is clear. Next time when you are using which, you are going to see, or whenever you are trying to construct a sentence, or you are using these pronouns in your essays or somewhere, so you are going to check whether you have used an object or not. If you are using a person, you are going to use who. If you are going to use an object, then you are going to use which. Moving on to the next one, that is that. Before proceeding on to the relative pronoun that, we need to understand these two relative clauses. Why is it important? I'll mention you in a while. Just see what is it. Non-restrictive relative clause. For example, my uncle, who is a painter, has a lot of paintings. I could have easily said my uncle has a lot of paintings. This wasn't necessary. Who is a painter? He obviously is a painter, that is why he's got a lot of paintings. So sometimes information that you are providing in a sentence is unnecessary and can be omitted. So this is when you call it as non-restrictive relative clause, and the information is unnecessary. You don't need it. You could just omit it and you could complete your sentence. Like for example, I could have easily said my uncle has a lot of paintings. The next one, restrictive relative clause. This is the school which is very famous. Okay, sometimes the information you provide cannot be omitted. That is very necessary to be added. The information provided is necessary. If I had said this is the school, what type of school is it? I'm mentioning over here it's very famous. This is school which is very famous. So sometimes when the information is very necessary to be added, you call it or you name it as restrictive relative clauses. Now why did I use this? Now I'll explain why I use them. See, in a restrictive relative clause, who and which can be replaced by that, but in this case you cannot possibly replace who and which with that. Okay, like for example, I couldn't say my uncle that is a painter has a lot of paintings. No, you cannot use that. Okay, I could have used over there this is the school that is very famous. Okay, this is grammatically incorrect when you say my uncle that is a painter has a lot of paintings. This is grammatically incorrect, whereas over here you could easily say this is the school that is very famous, or this is the garden that has beautiful flowers. Okay, so that over here can be replaced, which and who can be replaced with that, with the term that. Over here you can use it, but over here you cannot use that. It's restricted. Fine. So next time when you are using that, you should know that you are using it with a restrictive relative clause, that is where information is necessary and you cannot omit it. I hope the use of that is clear. Let's move on to the next one, that is whose, relative pronoun who. I'll go with one example over here for whose. Whose, is a possessive form of who. There's a possessive form of who. The man whose car was stolen was found from the streets. Now here we see that the car belonged to a person, car belonged to a man. So we are giving the information over here. Whose car was it? It was man's car. Okay, so we are using the possessive form whose. Whose car was stolen was found from the streets. The next one is whom. The chef whom I just told about cooks great. We're going to use it in restrictive clause only, where the information that you're providing cannot be omitted. So I hope the use of whom is clear to you. When you don't have any antecedent, then the use of what is there, simply we use what when there is no antecedent. Like for example, what you just ate was stale. What strikes me is that she doesn't want to understand. So I hope my today's lecture was clear to all of you. If you have any questions or any queries regarding all these relative pronouns, please mention them in the comment section below. I'll definitely reply to them. Thanks a lot guys. Thanks a lot once again.